2020 have been circulated. Are there any objections or amendments? There are none. They're confirmed as printed. Messages from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the Speaker. The first announcement is that the Honorable Speaker announced that he received the Auditor General's report on the work of the Office of the Auditor General for the financial year ended March 31st, 2019, which has been submitted to him and prescribed of the Section 101(3) of the Constitution. Members, the other announcement I'd like to take at this time is just to acknowledge the proceedings here today. And with that, I'd like to say good afternoon, Premier, good afternoon, Opposition Leader, members, Madam Clerk. I take this opportunity to express my gratitude for once again being confirmed with your support and respect to serve as the Speaker of this Honorable House. Members, I am greatly honored that you have given me your confidence to preside over the affairs of this House. As in the last House, I intend to conduct myself in a manner that is fair, balanced, but firm, so as to ensure that each member is treated with respect and dignity that we should demand of ourselves and others. As we conduct the business of the country and of the voters who sent us here, represent the best interests of all Bermuda, with the proper decorum that must be demanded at all times, both inside and outside of the House. In giving thanks, I must also recognize the people of Constituency 35, who once again have given their support and vote to continue to serve as their representative. For this, I am most humbled. I say to you individually and collectively, thank you, and ask that you hold me accountable by always feeling free to share with me your concerns and issues with how the business of this Assembly is conducted. I have stated before that Parliament represents the hallmark of democracy, an institution where laws are enacted and where views reflecting the different segments of our community are represented. As we gather today for this convening of a new legislative session, we do it at a time that gives recognition of the long history of being the 5th oldest assembly in the world and the oldest in the Commonwealth outside of the UK. Technology, lost the speech. There we go, sorry. We stand here today in acknowledgement of our 400th anniversary as a continuous legislature. Let me also thank the 400th Anniversary Committee for their commitment to wanting to recognize this anniversary with more than some of the normal things of a service and tree planting. Unfortunately, COVID-19 caused nearly all of the planned activities to be canceled. I was honestly moved by your desire to celebrate in a more meaningful way. Let me also thank the St. Peter's Church family, Father Tom, Gillian Outerbridge, and the Friends of St. Peter's for working with the committee to ensure today was successful. That's right, 100 years. I ask each one of us as members of this House to pause and reflect on that. As you reflect, I want you to know that you have already made history today by being here in St. Peter's Church, the site where Bermuda's first assembly sat some 400 years ago. You've made history today because this is the first time that an assembly has met in St. George's since 1815. This historic moment can begin and end simply with that. End of story. But I challenge you not to let this moment of our history be more than just a recognition of this location, but a new determination of our future. With the same drive and vigor that the politicians who sat here 400 years ago had when they moved the legislature from this little city in the east to what they saw as the big city in Hamilton and all the potentials it offered. They had a vision to step out on faith and move the country forward to the west, I might add. As the 400th Anniversary Committee planned how to celebrate the milestone of our history, we reflect on the pride that comes with being one of the oldest legislatures in the world. And yes, we should always be proud of that fact. However, in that reflection, we began to ask, what about our future? How have we become all that we should be 400 years later as a country? It was the question that led us to the theme for this 400th anniversary, Bermuda, Future Matters. It was our goal pre-COVID-19 to have had a series of community conversations around this theme to get Bermudians to understand that we have more in common than the things that we allow us to keep us apart and that are keeping us from reaching our full potential as a country. I challenge this assembly that as this new House does the business of our country, let it be done with the goal of building on the things that we as Bermudians have in common so that we can collectively take our country to its fullest potential. Thank you, members.
Messages from the Senate.
There are none.
Papers and other communications to the House.
There are numerous papers and communications for the House today. The majority of them center around the COVID-19 emergency measures, but I'm going to start with the first from the Deputy Premier. Deputy Premier, would you like to present yours?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the Registry General Annual Report for the year ending 31st of December 2019.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attend and submit the information of the Honorable House of Assembly, the Mental Health Transitional Regulations 2020, Occupational Safety and Health COVID-19 Revocation Regulations, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Number 3 Order 2020, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Number 2 Order 2020, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Number 3 Regulations 2020, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Number 2 Regulations 2020, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Amendment Number 5 Regulations 2020, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Amendment Number 4 Regulations 2020, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Amendment Number 3 Regulations 2020, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Amendment Number 2 Regulations 2020, Public Health COVID-19 Emergency Powers Amendment Regulations 2020, Public Health Clinical Laboratories Amendment Regulations 2020, Quarantine Travel Ban Revocation Order 2020, Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Amendment Number 4 Order 2020, Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Amendment Number 3 Order 2020, Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Amendment Number 2 Order 2020, Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Amendment Order 2020, and Quarantine COVID-19 Number 3 Order 2020.
Thank you, Minister.
Petitions,
There are none.
statements by ministers and junior ministers,
There are none.
reports of committees,
There are none.
Premier's questions.
Premier's questions. And for the, again, in recognition of this 400th anniversary, there's an added feature today that we're going to allow the young people, the representative of our youth parliament, to be able to put questions to the Premier in the format of the Premier's questions. And we almost recognize that that represents our future sitting here. And the reality of that is that many of the members who have served in Parliament were members who have come to the youth Parliament in the younger period of their life. So we want to continue to encourage the youth Parliament to do as they do. And as part of the significant recognition of this day, they too can be part of history by putting questions to the Premier in this moment. Mr. Premier, we're in Premier's question, and we have Ms. Cole Tockett and Mr. Douglas. I believe ladies first today?
Yes.
It will be ladies first, Mr. Premier.
Good afternoon, Honorable Premier.
Good afternoon.
It is understood that the Department of Workforce Development will be implementing a graduate on-the-job trainee program as a means by which to provide employment opportunities to new graduates who are unable to secure employment upon their return to the island. Considering the economic challenges created by the pandemic, will consideration be given to incentivizing local companies who hire new university graduates?
Thank you for your question. The answer to your question is yes, consideration will be given. Right now, there is already in place payroll tax breaks and reductions for trainee positions. In addition to that, one of the things that the Department of Workforce Development is also doing through the Ministry of Labor will be to providing partial salary subsidies for positions such as that for recent graduates.
And how many new graduates will...
Supplementary.
Sorry, as a
Yes,
supplementary
it's a
question.
supplementary.
Sorry, as a supplementary question. How many new graduates will the program cater to?
I do not have the exact number of graduates, but I know that it will be constrained due to budget constraints without question. So it would not be able to be unlimited. It'll be lovely if we could provide it to every single person that wants. But at this point in time, I think one of the most important things to remember during the period of the pandemic is that budgets are constrained. And that is why in the government's throne speech today, there was such a focus on economic growth, because that's the one thing that is necessary to provide a future for Floridians.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Youth Parliament Member. Mr. Douglas, would you like to put your question? Yes, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Premier.
Good afternoon.
My question is,
You can take your mask down so you hear a little clearer.
as a youth member in this community, I've noticed a significant growth and the impact on the community and the youth regarding to gang violence in our school systems. What steps can you take to ensure the safety and security of other youth within the schools when it comes to this type of violence?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Thank you for the question. One of the things that is important is, especially in this period of the pandemic, that we restarted the GREAT program, which is inside of the schools, the Gang Resistance Education and Training Program. So that is something that has been restarted with permission of the Minister of Education. It actually commenced on Monday, November 2nd, to start back up after the pandemic, which is something that's important. Our gang violence team is in the schools just about every day. They're in primary schools, they're in middle schools, and they visit the high schools. They try to diffuse situations before they become a challenge. And the gang violence team also meets with parents of students who are identified as prone to antisocial behavior to make sure that they can possibly divert them from those behaviors and to see what can be done not only with the Ministry of Education, but also with other helping services to make sure they are steered away from that path.
Thank you.
Supplementary?
No, thank you.
No
Thank
supplementary?
you. Nope.
Thank you, members of the Youth Parliament. Mr. Premier?
Yep.
That was a very nice exercise to have recorded for this historical moment.
Absolutely, getting
And
ready.
we do look forward to the future in the hands of these young people who will be leading our country one day. And we hope that your experience in Youth Parliament will help to formulate a good foundation for you to be able to step rightfully up to the leadership of this country. Thank you.
Congratulatory and/or obituary speeches.
As tradition holds, on this day, we normally carry that until the next sitting, so we'll move on from that.
So therefore, I'll move on straight to government bills. Okay, government bills for introduction, please.
Minister of Finance? Good afternoon.
Speaker, I'm introducing the following bill for its first reading so that it can be placed on the order paper for the next day of meeting. Insurance Amendment Number 2, Act 2020.
Thank you.
Digital Asset Business Amendment Act 2020.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Speaker, I'm introducing the following bill for its first reading so that it may be placed on the order paper for the next day of meeting, namely the Health Professionals Miscellaneous Amendments Act 2020.
Thank you. Mr. Birch?
I'm introducing the following bill for its first reading so that it may be placed on the order paper for the next day of meeting. It's Georgia's Club Act 2020 and the International Park Amendment Act.
Thank you. Deputy Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I'm introducing the following bill for the first reading so that it may be placed on the order paper for the next day of meeting. Land valuation and tax special provisions and postponement of preparation of draft valuation list Act 2020.
Thank you.
Opposition bills,
There are none.
private members' bills,
There are none.
notices of motion,
There are none.
orders of the day.
There are none. Mr. Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I move that this honorable House do now adjourn until next Friday, November 13th,
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Members, The House now stands adjourned until next Friday at 10 a.m., and we look forward to seeing you all there next Friday. And let me end. Let me take a moment to remind the membership that there is a workshop next week Thursday, particularly for new members. But any returning member who wishes to sit in, we'll be quite welcome to join us. So new members, you're encouraged to take advantage of it. It's from 10 a.m. to noonday.
Yes.
And it'll be at Parliament. And with those few remarks, let me just say that it's been a pleasure being in St. George's today. And I actually walked here to Parliament this morning. Long walk from Somerset, right? No, I actually stayed next to us. So I've had the pleasure of being tourist in St. George's today as well. And it was nice, warmly received in that I normally come down just to ensure that my cup goes back to Somerset. So I came for a different occasion and enjoyed being here as a tourist. On the parking lot, that's right. Thank you, members, and enjoy the rest of your day. We look forward to seeing you next week.
I'm excited. Thank you, Mrs. Place. Well done. See you, darling. See you later, baby. I think it. Whatever you told me, Grandma. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, all right. Okay, this place.
You ought to have your little walk or something. And I'm gonna make walk tomorrow morning. See you later. Take care. Farmer's Place. Hi, cousin.